in Zoom? Okay, all right, it's okay. All right, let me open the meeting for the record. Today is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. We in the City Hall Auditorium. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Finance. Participating in person, I have Board Member Lorraine Pesky, Board Member Christopher Bayes, Board Member Jim Wright, and participating via Zoom is Board Member Lance Boynton. Before we open the rest of the agenda, could we please stand and pledge the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tried to hold it through that.
I've been sneezing like crazy. I think the
Good
trees
job,
are
Lance.
starting to.
I think so too.
All right, so we will jump right into item number one. I will entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public for public comment.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bayes, seconded by Mr. Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have no members of the public in the house, so we'll close that item right out and go into item two. I'll take this in two parts. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the joint meeting held on December 20th, 2021.
So moved.
Ms.
Second.
Pesky, seconded by Mr. Bayes. Are there questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2B, I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes for January 18th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bayes,
Second.
and seconded by Ms. Pesky. Questions on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
And one abstention for the record was Mr. Wright. Item 3 is really a discussion item with budget update. I don't need a motion to go into this one. Just for the record, the budget books have been delivered to the Board of Finance members as of today, March 15th. These are the budgets at level 1 or the department head request level. Our budget subcommittee, two of the board members here today are members, Lorraine Pesky and Chris Bayes. We also have two members of the City Council, Armand Menichia and Carrie Hona, and two members as of today for Board of Safety are Doug Benedetto and Greg Cogswell. So we have our full committee. Committee started their work last Thursday, did an initial review of the police department budgets. That's animal control, traffic, emergency management, and the headquarters budgets. Quite a bit of work ahead of us to do. Based on the department head levels, I can tell you that we're hovering, and this is just on the city side, with sums that would equate to a significant mill rate increase. So reviewing these budgets at this level, finding those cuts early before we bring them to the council for approval or recommendations to the council for approval, and then back to this board is where we are. So any questions or concerns or thoughts? Or advice as we start this journey?
I don't think yet. I think, obviously we've got a lot of bunch of subcommittee meetings ahead and, it starts there. It starts with that initial overlook and then okay, now give us what you need. And then, and then take it from there. So I think we're just still pretty early, and I won't speak on behalf of Ms. Pesky, but I know we're both digesting and hearing all these presentations and working our way through that committee. So.
Thank you. The only other thing that I would point out for the Board of Finance members, this is a little bit of a departure from how we have presented budgets at this early stage to the Board of Finance. Actually, I think even the final budgets that are presented to the Board of Finance, as you go through these pages, you'll see that the that the book is in a great deal of detail. We have not only the summary pages with line by line salary requests, contracts, copiers, supplies, with the total budget request as compared to the 2022 adopted budget and amended budgets. But you'll also find all of the detail that populates each one of those line items behind the summary page. And you will also find that I have included this year, we have included, this is largely due to the work that Robin has done over the last 2 months. You'll also find that there are payroll pages that itemize how those salary line items are populated. I think it's good information, it's important information because frequently when we're looking at these budgets and we're looking at numbers, for anybody who's not paying close attention, they're not realizing that there's a person attached to each one of those numbers, or there is a contract attached to each one of those numbers. So we, Robin and I sat down early and decided that we wanted to create something that was more informative, more comprehensive, and provided a level of detail that will not only help us throughout the budget deliberation, but even after the budget is adopted as a reference point, going back, I don't know, I'm sure all of you get the same thing I do. Somebody will call my office and will say, well, what is that? So I do look at my budget book. I do look at those detail pages and I'm able to give them an answer. It's fairly close to accurate. So we meet for the next several Thursdays and we'll advance, as I said, a recommendation to the council and then start the joint meetings, public hearings, and then ultimately budget adoption. The one thing that we will also be undertaking at the budget subcommittee level is, I think we want to go into more detail on the revenue, something that we really haven't done a lot at that budget subcommittee level. Because this year, as you may know, the state is also proposing to cap the motor vehicle mill rate. Right now, the proposal, I think it's in the governor's budget, is to cap it at 29 mills with a promise that they will keep the municipality whole. So the loss of revenue on the motor vehicles won't shift to, a proportional increase on real estate. So I think taking our time to do the revenues.
Whole up to our mill rate or whole up to the 45?
I am not sure. It's so early in the game. I couldn't tell you. So we're at 46.17. If it's only to the 45, the current mill rate cap, we will experience a loss in revenue. So
Well, our motor vehicle is only 45, correct?
right now,
Yes.
But it's because it's capped, not because.
it
Right,
is capped.
exactly.
It's capped, but right now the state is sending revenue that is the difference between the current
45
45 and the
46.
46.17.
That's what I thought.
So if they say we're only going to keep you whole to the 45, then we will be losing, and it's about $200,000. And this is why I think the budget subcommittee and even the Board of Finance, we can spend a little more time at this board discussing what those revenues are.
Well, just looking at the one department, police department, and thinking about how many officers they're short anyways. If we filled those positions, then there would be an even bigger line item for salaries and fringes.
So what you'll find when you look at that department budget, you'll see that we accounted for those vacancies at the entry level. So in the budget and the salary page, you'll find there are 10 vacancies. And we budgeted those 10 vacancies at, I don't remember the sum. Yeah, base with no, how policemen are hired is they come in with an hourly rate in the first year, the second year, they get a step, the third year, they get a step, they get 5 steps, and then they start getting longevity stipends for any additional works. But so the vacant positions are you did, so you know what it is, we did the gross. So those, and when we did this budget, it was 9 vacancies. The 10th one came right after the budget dropped. So for 9 vacancies, that is $610,634. So you can do a quick calculation. That's of what that is per patrolman at entry level C. Yeah, entry level C. So we have that number in here. The question is, could we possibly, knowing the difficulty the chief is having with getting seats in the academy, applicants that are qualified, you know, do we anticipate being able to fill all 10 of those vacancies, you know, in this budget year? So, and those are the things that we would rely on the chief to determine, should there be a recommendation that there be a reduction in his budget. And right now, his budget is standing at almost a 10% increase over last year. So just the beginning, but a lot to digest.
Do we have any word on benefits yet? Health benefits?
We do. So Robin and I had an early meeting with Joe Spurgeon. Alice joined us just because this is the one account and one calculation that is a little convoluted. And so Alice came, sat in with us, and we're looking at right now, you'll see it's been budgeted level in this budget proposal. We may have some reductions in that amount, mostly because this will be the first year that we can actually quantify and account for prescription rebates. So still a work in progress. We have a meeting that we need to hold with the Board of Education. We'll go over all of those numbers with the Board of Education. We'll make a decision on, you know, where our comfort level is on extraordinary expenses, and then the Board of Education and Robin and I will formulate a recommendation to come back. There will be a budget adjustment.
People going back to the doctors?
So, yeah, I mean, Joe indicated that there was more experience, but not as much as they were anticipating.
Still,
Yeah.
I just worry that still that there are people not taking care of themselves with the COVID concerns about going into doctor's offices.
I would agree. I think that people are putting off a lot of the standard wellness visits, which we know always ends up being a clip behind the knees, because something that's detected early can be easily treated. Something that goes undetected too long becomes chronic or critical. So happy reading. And if there are no other discussion, no additional discussion on the budget, I'll move into item 4. Again, I don't need a motion. This is just discussion, an audit update. And I don't know, Robin, if you want to come to the mic and just talk a little bit about where we are. As she's walking over, I'll share with you. We were on an extension before the meeting started. Robin, I did share with the members that our auditor shared with us that there is a shortage of accountants out there, auditors. So we are still on an extension through the end of March. However, we've been pushing the auditors to get this wrapped up for us in the next week, or hopefully by a week from Friday, so that we can have it ready for our S&P rating call for bond sales. but I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the audit.
Yeah, it's in review right now. So we're doing our review, they're doing their review. Hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have something back from their reviewers. We'll make any adjustments at that point, and hopefully we'll have the final draft by sometime. Yeah, before the end of the month. We're so close to that. So just little things here and there that we've been going back and forth with, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Thank
And
you.
That's it.
Yeah. Questions about the audit?
It's just the city, the Board of Ed audits separate.
No,
Yeah.
it's the same.
Oh,
There is only one audit. When we say it's an audit, a lot of people think there's the Board of Education and there's the city. They're two
Right.
different agencies or entities. We are one. We are one budget. We have a shared cash pool. The expenses are all journaled, through our general fund. So yes, this is both the Board of Education and the city. And I think the last email that I saw from CLA like a couple of emails ago was they were waiting for some information from the board's attorney and stuff. Did you see
Oh.
that email? Yeah. All of a sudden I'm getting bombarded with theirs. So I think that in addition to our questions that you've been going back and forth, I think they said they were also waiting for something from the Board of Education's attorney.
Okay. We had some questions earlier, but we were all set with ours. Vic answered all the questions that they had.
Excellent. Okay, if there's no questions on audit, I forget to look at the screen. Lance, anything you have? Any questions?
The only question is just anything unforeseen, anything that you anticipate, kind of coming up?
In the audit? No. Well, I think the only thing Robin Rista Malanka, our Economic Development Director, and I met briefly this afternoon. Whenever you get one of these brownfield remediation grants, and especially if it's a grant that spans a lot of years, all the reporting mechanisms get reviewed. So the $1 million grant that we received for 100 Franklin Street, we received that back in 2015. All of those expenses ended up getting incurred and paid in the 2021 fiscal year. So that's one area I think the auditor is really focusing on, and we're going back and forth with DECD to fine tune what were those reporting requirements and mechanisms. So that's the only one I think.
That was it.
Anything else that you're?
Maybe something similar with the COVID bucket that we had put together. So COVID expenses, any challenges there?
It's a great question. No, because that audit is done separately. You haven't heard anything from Martin Heft at OPM on our audit for?
No, with our
CRF?
final submission for CRF, we haven't received
Yeah.
anything back, but.
No, nothing. So fortunately, because those expenditures are outside of the operating expenses, which is what our city audit is about.
Yeah, all those
But-
entries were, everything was recognized in the years that it, took place. So we had made some changes at the last minute. We went back and gave them those entries and everything was adjusted accordingly.
Okay.
Yep.
I know every time I pick up the paper and read something more about CRF or ARPA or school construction grant money, I do cringe a little. So, all right. If there's no additional questions on audit, we'll move into item number 5. I'll entertain a motion to consider business by the department heads.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
second,
And seconded by Mr. Bayes. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Robin, I have Alice on my mind. She was in the office the last couple of days. Anything else? Yes.
We're still trying to fill our vacancies
Challenge. Thank you. Anything from the city clerk's office? All right, then item 6, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by mayor and members.
So moved.
Second,
Ms. Pesky, seconded by Mr. Bayes. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Starting on the screen, anything else this evening? Mr. Boynton?
Just exciting to see the construction started. It's kind of nice to see all that work that we've been working on for half a decade. It's nice to see new construction in Torrington. It's exciting. How's it going? You know, are we all as excited as I am?
Yes. So, you know, and the real indicator of all of that is the grand list. And I know Mr. Wright texted or emailed me to ask me for some grand list information. To your point, and I always feel like I need to boast a little bit about this. You know, when you look at the Keystone project, which was the largest construction project by a developer in the city of Torrington in a long time. And we did give them a tax abatement to incentivize them because their pro forma wasn't working. The numbers weren't working for their lenders or their equity partners. So we did that tax abatement. And last year they broke into, as the assessments roll on to the taxable list, they broke into the top 10 taxpayers. And this year they are number 3 on the list of the top 10. You know, so.
Saw that. That was
Yes.
nice to see.
Yeah. I continue to meet with developers. I had a couple of developers in the office this morning. Despite the recession, I am still seeing a lot of interest in what we have in the city of Torrington. Property values are still very affordable. So I'm hoping that we don't get lost in the crunch of recession and gasoline prices and market downturns. But thank you. Ms. Pesky.
Has the vehicle replacement committee met and thought about, I mean, we just bought a new car. I needed a car that could hold 3 car seats.
Yeah, I know. And without pinching your fingers, plugging them into those
Yeah.
buckles. Yeah.
So I mean, I got, a little more money for my used car, which was nice. But certainly, and as you were stating the other night, the fire truck. And so are they going through and
So yes, the vehicle replacement committee met. Chris Bayes is on that also. We met 2 weeks ago just to go over the plan, what can be put off for a year and what cannot be put off. And the committee sent Emil back to revise the plan and give us numbers to, number 1, plug into each of the department operating budgets as vehicle replacement costs. And number 2, tell us, what do we need to include in our budget this year? Because that is that one budget line item that's so easy to read from when you're trying to cut your budgets. So our meeting is Friday morning to follow up and go over that. So for the budget subcommittee and ultimately council and board of finance, you'll see revised numbers.
what's the next step in the ARPA money in terms of our information, city council and the public?
So where we've been is we met with, first it all started with our long-term recovery committee that was established. This was something that FEMA encouraged the municipalities to establish. That long-term recovery committee was established early in the pandemic. I'm going to say in June of 2020 is when the long-term recovery committee was established. A lot of department heads identifying department heads and partners outside. So we had New Opportunities, we had Fish and Friendly Hands, we had Susan B. Anthony, we had Brooker Memorial with the daycare. And we were selecting these leaders in their fields because we knew that they could tap into their resources to get information as to what are the unmet needs. You know, how high on the list is daycare, you know, because that was an industry that was significantly impacted. So all of that information came back to the long-term recovery committee. That committee then assembled a list of priorities, mental health, childcare, labor. So they sort of like put these in buckets of priority. That list was then assembled by an internal ARPA committee, and it was sent to the city council in October. Keeping in mind, these ARPA funds are grant funds. They're not operating budget funds, which is what the Board of Finance is overseeing. ARPA funds are grant funds, much like the brownfield funds. We get $1 million grant. The Board of Finance doesn't, approve any of those expenditures. Everything goes to the city council. So the ARPA funds are being treated the same way. Our reporting requirements on ARPA funds are very different also. We're not reporting back to a Board of Finance. We're actually reporting back to the US Treasury. So for those reasons, there's a very up and down, linear, identify, strategize solutions, bring it back to a committee, fine tune it, then bring it to the public. Went to the council in October, went to the council again in January. There's a survey right now online, if you get a chance to fill it out, that talks about each one of these funding priorities. And that public input will then further inform the city council as to whether or not we're on track for a spending strategy, I guess is the best way to put it. So I'm hoping we'll have something to put back before the council on Monday. If not, it'll be April 4th.
Why do other communities include their Board of Finance, their boards of finance in this ARPA?
I don't know. Everybody is looking for, there's no one panacea as to what's the perfect methodology for doing this. Some of them have established an ad hoc committee. I think Kent was using an ad hoc committee. They sent everything over to the ad hoc committee, and then the ad hoc committee was bringing it back to their Board of Selectmen for the selectmen to bring up. I think everybody's looking for, those experts in their fields. And for some communities, especially the smaller communities, boards of finance are usually those, those experts. But everybody, I've gone back and forth with CCM. CCM keeps testing us, what's your methodology, what's your process? I've shared with them, I think our methodology is more in line with the vast majority of other municipalities. The important thing in all of this is the public process. The US Treasury is pushing back on this, saying, what was your process? So keeping track of, here's the PowerPoint presentation that was delivered on October 10th. Then here's the public discussion on February 2nd. Here's the survey that came out of that, and we've left that survey open a long period of time. I'm still not satisfied with the number of responses. I think we had 150 responses. I don't think that's a real strong indication of public opinion. I did see Sundays, the easiest day for me to read the local newspapers. And I did see that the Republican American is offering, like we use Constant Contact, so we could send an email blast to over 300 recipients that have signed up. We have about 300, 400 recipients, but through a local newspaper, they're offering to send email, Twitter, Instagram out to 30,000 subscribers. So I just met with Rista and our communications intern to talk about utilizing that as another outreach so that we're sure that we're getting a bigger audience on that survey. The survey is directly tied to each one of those recommended line items for expenditures.
Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
A timetable on this? Yeah.
So we are only required to commit the funding by December 31st of 2024. And we are required to spend it by December 31st, 2026. So we are not behind, and every day I'm reading in the paper, another community is passing their, they're approving their ARPA spending plans. I think last week Litchfield did. Litchfield actually did it through a public hearing. I think the public, like their school referendums, actually came out and voted on theirs. So, I mean, every community is doing something a little bit different. The key thing is making sure that the public is aware of what we're doing. The only thing that I'm feeling a little pressure for us to approve and move forward with the distribution of the funds is we are heading, right into the, to the recession. Small businesses are feeling the pinch with gasoline prices, with supply chain, food. Our restaurants are, they're finding it harder to find those quantities of food at prices that don't have a significant impact on what they're passing over to their patrons. So I am feeling that we need to move this money out, especially that portion of the money that will hit our not-for-profits and our small businesses. I need to move that out quickly.
And any construction projects that we're going to be
Goodness.
using, because if we need to expend it by 2026, shovels in the ground and get moving. And those things are also costing more money, as we know. It's going to use up more of it. So get an agreement contract on it so that we know how much of the money that we're going to be using for that.
Well said. Anything else from,
No,
okay,
thank
Mr. Baez?
The only thing is, I think we should have some sort of meeting with the building committee for the high school. I don't know, I'm sure the other board members are aware that that project's currently under state audit because of some malfeasance in that office. So I think before we go out to bond, which we plan to do at the end of next month, right?
Yes.
It's usually April. We'll go out
May.
to bond.
I think our
May.
S&P rating call is in the middle of April, and I think we
Yeah.
were targeting early May for the bond sales. I think.
Yeah, I think we should meet with them and find out what's going on, and get their take on things before we move forward with any bonding on that project, because I mean, we don't know what's gonna come out of, I mean, it's printed in paper. There is an audit happening for that school project, so, and I know that $20 million is in limbo, and there's a few different things going on. So like I said, just before we go out to bond, I think we should get a clear update from them on what's going on.
Okay, so April 19th is our next Board of Finance meeting. That's before the public hearing or the joint meeting with the Board of Education. I'll reach out to Mr. Aram and Mario Longabuco.
Okay.
And ask them, and Sue Lebowski, and ask them if they could just give us an update. To that point, as you all know, the soft costs that have been incurred to date, we have been advancing, from a fund balance. That's the nice thing about having a fund balance. You can float those expenses in anticipation of the school construction grant funds coming back. Those funds were expended. We know we were anticipating 85% reimbursement on those expenses. We haven't received the reimbursement yet. And I do know that the building committee, Mr. Aram in particular, is, I think, in daily contact with the department to see where we are on that. So yeah, it might be advisable for us to have that conversation. On the 19th, while I'm talking about school construction and Board of Education, I've also invited the superintendent to come to the board to discuss the migration to Infinite Vision. I always want to say wisdom. So they've been working on that over the last several months. They've identified some challenges in integration with our system. But also I think they've come up with some strategy. So what I'll do is I'll have them do that on the 19th as well. Okay. All right, Mr. Wright, anything?
I just had a question about the bulk waste permits.
Mhm.
How is that working? And there's no charge for that? And what do they take? Is people responding to that?
They're responding incredibly well. Ray presented to the city council 2 meetings ago that in January, where he might ordinarily have a few $1,000s worth of expenses related to bulky waste pickup, he had less than $1,000. The response has been very positive. People who've had trouble filling out the form would call in. Linda Orr, who is our recycling coordinator, would walk them through. They would immediately, after hitting submit, get an email acknowledging that we received it and telling them the date that the bulk waste would be picked up. So people are genuinely liking that. My husband and I came downtown Sunday morning and I noticed that there was a stack of mattresses on what looked like city property. It was a bump out where Turner Avenue is, where it meets Litchfield Street. And so I mentioned it to Linda yesterday. She went into her documents and she said, oh, here's the permit somebody pulled. It's 4 mattresses, right? So it is working. People are really doing it. So we're pretty pleased with that. We're waiting for February's numbers. They're crunching those numbers to give us a report. Usually when the spring, you see an uptick in that junk that gets put out at the end of the driveways. We have been talking with Deep and with Mira. That contract is coming to an end. By the way, are you going to do that meeting tomorrow? Can you?
Yes.
Good. So meeting with Deep to discuss the Mira plants, where they are with tonnage, the rate per ton, and some of the strategies that we might be able to incorporate into our routines, including organics or food waste being separated from the regular. And as a farmer, it's probably something you never put in the garbage. You probably throw it in the composter. Yeah. So they're working on a whole strategy that'll include a lot of the alternatives to throwing everything in that 96-gallon bin. So the only other thing is, thank you, by the way, for your email asking about the grand list. So what I've just handed out to each of you is a 4-year look back. The question Mr. Wright asked is, how did this year's grand list compare to the increases from last year? So I actually took it up a level and went back 4 years. And you could see over the last 4 years that we were hovering, and we had great grand list growth. 2019, that was the reval. In 2020, we were still sustaining growth. And in 2021, we even increased that growth. The mystery in all of this 2021 grand list is that our real estate didn't move a lot. It was just a little over 0.1%, but the motor vehicle went up 25%. So.
And you said the other day that the next full fiscal reval is 2025?
2024, 5 years from the 2019, not full physical, that would be the paper. And 2019 was the full physical.
Okay, so the next one is not a full fiscal.
Correct.
Is
Paper.
Okay.
All right. With that, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Mr. Bayes, seconded by Mr. Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
good night, everybody.
Good night, Lance.